And we're back with another episode of NBA Observations. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from NBA Observations, the Lakers Fast Break. And also as well, I want to go ahead and make sure you go ahead and like and subscribe. Make sure you go ahead and post those 5-star reviews wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you hit us up all week for the latest post games and NBA observations we bring to you right here at the Lakers Fast Break. But it wouldn't be an NBA observations without a great NBA observer indeed, if I could say that correctly. Good man indeed. It is, of course, Calif Poncy. He is back. He is back once again. Looking forward to this. Is what we've been waiting for, I think, all season long from the New Century Press and also as well the Swab Report. Calif, this is what we've been waiting for. You and I have been talking. You covered the Oklahoma City Thunder at length. I covered the Los Angeles Lakers now and then. Yeah, this semi-regularly, but okay, a lot. But we've been waiting. We've been waiting for this point to come in, seeing if they would go ahead and clash in a postseason contest. And goodness gracious, they are. As of Tuesday, we're going to go ahead and see what happens as the Lakers head into OKC for a second round matchup against the Thunder.
Yeah, I mean, it's felt like, despite the seedings not suggesting it for a lot of the season, it really just felt like for some reason this matchup was going to happen. I don't know if that's just because the fan bases are so adversarial online. I don't know if that's because of the history of Luka Doncic, who, funny enough, is not likely to probably play in this series. His past with the Thunder in that 2024 series when he knocks him out when he was still in Dallas. But now we're here. We've arrived, and neither team is healthy. Now the Lakers' hit is a lot bigger than the Thunder's hit because of the depth of Oklahoma City. But it's a shame that we're not going to be able to see both teams at full tilt, because the Lakers, when they were healthy there late in the season, really seemed to be trending towards being a team that could be a little more competitive with a team the level of Oklahoma City. But now, as I'm sure we'll get into, I don't necessarily think that's probably what's in store in this series, but we'll see. And really just don't want to skip over what a shockingly fun and competitive first round it was. I mean, I think we both kind of looked at that first round slate and we're like, oh, this is going to be, we're all fingers crossed just waiting for the second round. And now I would argue the second round, now Anthony Edwards is somehow playing a week after I thought he had a serious knee injury based on that fall. He's somehow going to play in this game. But
and I thought Giannis Antetokounmpo's return from a hyperextension was fast. Did he go to Europe?
I don't know if he did, because if he did, then him and Luka did not see the same person based off their recovery windows here. So I don't know where he went. I don't know what illegal substances he got pumped into his knee there, but he's playing tonight somehow a week after what looked to be a really bad injury. And good on it. I really hope I'm wrong, but I just don't know how he can play and him not be somewhat of a shell of himself, especially someone as reliant on his athleticism as Anthony Edwards is. As great as he is, he's obviously so great because of his athleticism, as so many players in the league. So him being compromised, because you got to remember he was already dealing with that runner's knee in his other knee, and then he hurt this knee, and he didn't really look like himself, I didn't think, before he got hurt in that last series, and now he's adding another injury onto it. So I hope he's all right. But either way, assuming he can avoid re-injuring or anything like that, of course, I'm glad he's playing. He's one of the more fun players in the league to have around and watch. And it'll just make this a more competitive series, because other than that, I just don't think that, based off the regular season matchups, which can be overvalued, but I think in the way that Oklahoma City was able to beat the Lakers in their regular season matchups, it probably should be taken into account on how the series could go. And then other than, I think Philly, New York could be close, and Boston, Cleveland could be okay, but that top series with Boston and Cleveland, despite, I think, any of the four teams alive in the East could make the finals, and I wouldn't be totally shocked by it at this point. I just think that both those teams, something feels off with both of them, I think, after those 7-game series against teams that they were just a lot more talented than both. Or I wouldn't even say that in the case of Orlando, but Orlando had such a terrible season and Detroit had such a great season, and then it kind of surprisingly went 7. So could be an interesting second round, or it could be a dud of a second round. Neither one would surprise me, but that first round was way better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, enjoyable first round. I love it when the Celtics meet hard times. Can't say I will shed a tear for them at all. No, I won't. And the clips got clipped as well. It's always an extra added bonus. Again, as I said last night, and it was aired this morning for Lakers Latest on the Fan Arc Network, Lakers are playing with house money.
Yeah, they are.
From this point forward. They have a built-in excuse with Luka not being there. They also have a built-in excuse saying they're facing the champs, the team that beat them on an average by 29.3 points per game. That was the point differential, everyone, in the 4 games this season. 29. It's the largest ever between a matchup as far as 2 teams in the playoffs. 29. So that is, it's all out there. I went to Kalshi because I have to go ahead and do Kalshi reads for my other channel, and 8% to win the series. 8.
It's a little high, I think.
Huh?
That's a little. You think in 8 of 100 worlds the Lakers win? I don't.
I do.
Okay, fair enough. I
do. There's an 8% chance I think that the Lakers can win.
With the less than promising health updates with Luka, I don't think this team without Luka can beat the Thunder. I think that goes without saying. And there's just been nothing but kind of negativity around the reports around him in terms of his timeline. He's not running yet. They said he's nowhere close to returning, has been said by a slew of national insiders. So I don't know. I just think that this is and I'm sure you talked about this on your other show, but the particular matchup of LA, who likes to turn the ball over, and OKC, who loves to force turnovers, is just not a great recipe for the Lakers, in my opinion. And I just don't see how they win this series or even really make it a competitive series without Luka Doncic, and he doesn't appear like he's going to play.
So, okay. The odds are stacked against the Lakers. Yeah, absolutely. I can't say I disagree with you on that. I can't say that I'm going to argue with that fact. I'm not going to go to town on it. And everybody knows. All of our audience knows, Joe, myself, Legend. We've all prepped our entire audience for this very fact that the odds are stacked against the Lakers. And if you're still picking the Lakers in 6, or if you're still picking the Lakers in 7, God bless you. I hope it does. I want to be wrong. I said this on the air for 10 minutes on Lakers Latest. I want to be wrong. If I end up picking the Oklahoma City Thunder to win the series, and the odds are likely by the end of the show, I will. I want to be wrong. I absolutely want everybody in the comments to literally just go at me, because that would mean the Lakers win, and that's what I want the most. So again, the odds are stacked against the Lakers, but again, they're playing with house money. This is where that, a 4th ranked team in the Western Conference, which was right about where most of us picked the Lakers, 4th or 5th, that seemed to be the most popular choices. This is where you go. You meet the number 1 team in the second round, and it's usually the second round you go. And then that's it. And then that's what are the odds are most likely in. So we'll see. Again, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to pick the Lakers and try to make sense of it. I cannot sit here and tell everyone down your leading scorer, who happens to be the leading scorer in the NBA, your best overall player as far as from an offensive standpoint, the guy who can fundamentally and dynamically change this series if something went wrong on the other side continuously for multiple games, not just one game. LeBron can turn back the clock in one game or even 2, change back the clock. Austin Reeves could go for 40 or 45 and fundamentally change one game in this series, in my opinion. But to put it all together for 4 games, the only player that I think could do that if he went nuclear is Luka Doncic. And like you said, he's not playing for at least the minimum the start of this series.
Yeah, I mean, this is just this. You absolutely said it. House money, whatever, however you want to word it. That winning a series with their injury situation is kind of, I want to say, just like a found money almost for the Lakers here. Like when Luka went down, everyone, including me, was like, "Oh, the Rockets in 5, Rockets in 4, whatever." And then it was the opposite. The Lakers were pretty clear. I mean, they won. They won more games and we're up 3-0 and look like the better team for the majority of the series based off the results. I just think that, and this is an imperfect Lakers team. Like we know this. They admitted, I think, pretty loudly at the deadline with their lack of willingness to give up heavy assets that they didn't necessarily think this was a team that was going to be able to compete with the Spurs and the Thunders of the world. And that's fine. They fell into this Luka Doncic thing when I think their plan was we're going to have to figure out how to enter a new era, whatever. And then a new era fell into their lap. And it's really hard to, when you have huge contracts on the books like a LeBron, it's really hard to move on the fly like that. And I think they've really done a half decent job. Now, I'm not a big DeAndre Ayton fan. I can't imagine very many Lakers fans are either after the season, but he's been serviceable and you aren't paying him much, And then Kennard was obviously, Houston finally poked some holes in him after the first few games of last series, but it's been, I mean, you got him for essentially free, a rotting Gabe Davis contract basically. So that's been a
Gabe
good
Vincent. Gabe Vincent.
They're Gabe Vincent, not Gabe Davis. That's
okay. He gets the way he played. Yeah, I'd forget his name too. That's okay.
I got mixed up formerly relevant athletes, or washed up formerly relevant athletes mixed up.
I forgot Neemias Queta played in Sacramento. I thought he played in Utah, and he was actually at Utah State all this time. So I was wrong on that one. I forgot to tell you that. I was talking to Matt John, and he corrected me on that. No, he never played at Utah for the Jazz, Gerald. He played at Utah State. I was like, oh, that's why I had Utah stuck in my brain. Okay, he played for the Kings. Well, nobody remembers that. Just I remember him being cut and the Boston Celtics picking up, and now he's played well enough to get a contract of his own. But getting back to the Lakers and the Thunder, SG outside of an SGA injury, I mean, first of all, the Lakers have to go ahead and limit his free throw. We talked about this already ad nauseum before. The limiting of the free throw. If he goes 15 free throws, you're done. It's just you're done. The Lakers have 44 turnovers in Oklahoma City over the games 1 and 2, like they had last week in Houston in games 3 and 4. They're done. They're absolutely done. You cannot do that. I put out a stat as far as on Lakers' latest. I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head because I calculated in all 4 games as far as the number of turnovers. I think the Lakers committed 79 turnovers at about that led to 90 points ish for OKC, and I think that was a 30-point difference, and ended up being like 20 turnovers less for OKC over the course of the 4 games, and 30 points less for OKC. So that's a full game right there. That's a full spread, 29 points. So yes, again, it is so important for OKC. They feed off of turnovers. It's important for the Lakers to try and take care of the ball. But that's a situation where without Luka handling the ball a lot, it's going to lead to LeBron and Austin, and Marcus Smart saw some very lazy passes in that last round. They got away with it because Houston, outside of Orlando, I've not seen a worse offense in the playoffs in quite some time. But then Orlando, kind of showed up on that one. But Oklahoma City will take advantage of it. So it is really hard for me to come to grips with that. And plus, when you go from man to man, roster to roster spot, the depth of OKC and who they can bring up and who they can bring in and how they contribute right now is just so much more substantial than what the Lakers bring off the bench. And everything ties in the way of Oklahoma City when you look at it objectively. And again, if you are the dear-hearted fan that is still thinking somehow the Lakers going to pull it off, God bless you. Put money on it because you're going to make a ton of money. I just said last night, I think if you bet $100 on Calci, you're going to win close to $1,000 on it. So, or 2,000. I think it's 2,000 if you want them to, if you want to pick them to win the Western Conference Championship, and $1,000 to win this series. So yeah, again, it's house money. And I'm just going to say right now, however the Lakers do, will they lose in a sweep? Will they lose in 5 games? I'm not sure. Will they put up a fight? I'm hoping they will. I'm hoping they will go ahead and just be able to make SGA and OKC sweat just for at least a little bit at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, I think the formula for LA to maybe win more than one game here would be OKC just has to have bad nights from three, which they're really prone to doing. Like that, the Lakers don't have to do anything to cause that. Like they can just miss wide open threes. That's kind of their only flaw as a team, in my opinion, that I can find right now. The other thing is you can't turn the ball over all the time, which is not really how they've played in these playoffs, and they haven't been going against one of the best turnover, if not the best turnover forcing defense ever that we've seen. And then like you said, you got to slow down SGA, whether that's keeping him off the free throw line. That's an important part of that. But I just don't think that as much. I honestly think Marcus Smart has been an absolute, like, for what you have him for, I think it's been a home run of a signing. But he's a little small. Like the guys who's ever given SGA the most trouble in his career has been Herb Jones. And Herb Jones is kind of a big wing. Amen Thompson's like that too. And that's just not someone that the Lakers really have on their roster right now. So I totally agree that this is all just pretty much sunshine and rainbows for the Lakers at this point, minus the Luka injury. Like they've made it farther than I thought they would, than I think most thought they would, especially during the first half of the season. And then with that Luka injury. But I just don't see the formula for this being a competitive series. So I'm going to say Thunder in 5, and I'm closer to it being Thunder in 4 than I am to it being Thunder in 6. So I'll level out on Thunder in 5.
I'm going to say, as far as this is concerned, I said on both my shows that the Lakers have to split in OKC, and then they have to win game 3 to make OKC start to think and make sure. If that doesn't happen, then like you said, it could be 4 or 5. But again, if the Lakers do the impossible, they split in OKC and they go ahead and they win game 3 in LA, then I think it's going to be a fight. Maybe we'll stretch it out to 6, but yeah, right now you'd have to say 4 or 5 for OKC. And I'm sorry to all Lakers fans. I want to be proven wrong in every way, shape, or form, but you could not any one of you out there could not realistically look me in the eye and say, yeah, Lakers should be favored in this series. I'm like, that stuff you're taking is pretty dang strong.
Yeah. I mean, JJ said it. Like this is one of the best teams that their statistical profile is one of the best teams ever. And I get they have not garnered that respect necessarily from the national media or from fans, but if it's just numbers and what do they say, men, women versus numbers in the line, right? Like just numbers, this is one of the best teams of all time. And it was last season too. And then we kind of saw why I am a little less bullish on San Antonio than some, because like even if you've been through it once, like you just got to go through your wars, and they went through that last season. They were able to go through those wars and still win the championship. And beyond this series, I just think that this, especially with like how Boston fizzled out, I thought Boston was one of the 3 other teams that can beat them, and of those 3 teams, 2 lost in the first round in Denver and Boston. So I think it's San Antonio or OKC that's going to win the championship at this point. And I just think anybody other than the Spurs, whether that be the Lakers, if Minnesota were to somehow knock off San Antonio, or any of these 4 teams left in the East, I think they're just kind of in the way of OKC, as dismissive as that sounds. I don't mean it to. I just think that's what the stats say. And they're better than they were last season when they won the championship. And on top of all these things kind of working against the Lakers in the series, I think the vibe of it, now I think they're both technically listed as week to week, but Jalen Williams seems a lot closer to returning than Luka Doncic, just based off of, some reporters who were there said Jalen Williams was like participating in some of the practice at the end. So like he's, I'm sure, running and back doing stuff like that, and Luka isn't. So on top of everything else, it seems like OKC has a lot better chance of having their full complement of players than the Lakers here. So yeah, but I mean, I think that one is probably the most easy to read of this first round. And I think that I would have leaned that San Antonio, Minnesota was a similar situation, but this Anthony Edwards news, I think at least cracks the door open for a competitive series that Minnesota could win. I mean, I think as a NBA collective, we kind of have to get out of this doubting Minnesota business. And I was right there. Like I was with everyone where it's like that. I mean, how many years in a row, like, are they like they weren't good in the regular season and whatever, and they're weird and they complain a lot and all this stuff, but then they go and they just kind of destroyed the Nuggets. Like, they were just way better. So with Ant back, I think they have a puncher's chance, which is a little more than I give the Lakers. But I think that this other series in the West could be really interesting if he's able to look anything like himself.
Once again, it's Calif Poncy. Go ahead and check out what he's doing at the New Century Press and also the Suave Report. We're previewing the second round of the playoffs, although it has already started as we're recording this right now. We'll touch on New York and Philadelphia, although it looks like a very tired Philadelphia team entered into MSG today. But I don't want to say whatever happens in game one is going to be the all be all end all with this series. And because I know a lot of people already in the last 48 hours have given it already to New York, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But the other Western Conference matchup, you touched on it, was or is Minnesota versus San Antonio. And I'm higher on San Antonio. I just think that they're earning their lumps now. And I just think Wemby is just that special of a player that he's willing to eschew all the traditional thinking out there in the world and say, you know what, I'm going to put this on me. I don't care about the bright lights. I don't care how bright they are. I'm 7 feet, whatever. Depends on the channel, because some say 7'4", some say 7'5", some say 7'7". So yeah, absolutely want to say, I'm going to go ahead and say right now that San Antonio for me, with a very injured Anthony Edwards. And if anything goes wrong with Anthony Edwards at all with those knees and very shaky knees, we're talking very shaky knees, and he has to be in elite form to help this team win. Ayo Dosunmu had an injury and he wasn't even playing in the last game that they won. You're needing another offensive performance from McDaniels. Is he able to give you that? Reed, Randall, I mean, these guys have to play at a high level to get past as far as San Antonio is concerned, because I think San Antonio is going to win I think they're going to win in 5. I really am confident in them. I could be wrong. I may be wrong, but I'm despite the youth that's in their backcourt, I think they have, between De'Aaron Fox scoring on certain days where he goes in those scoring bursts, to Victor Wembanyama, if he keeps his head off the ground, I think that I really think that they're on a mission and they're determined, and I think that they're willing to buck the trend on how much experience will matter in this playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly can. Like, I don't want to be dismissive of how good they are, because I think I was pretty early in the season, I was like, this team is going to be really, really, really good. And they're obviously even way better than I thought they would be. But I just think that it's more OKC than San Antonio for me in terms of what I think will happen in the long run of things. But in this series, it's just all about Ant. If Ant somehow comes out and looks like 90% of himself, then I think they can maybe take it to 6 or 7, and who knows what happens. But the likelihood is we're not looking at that with these injuries, both knees banged up for a really athletic player who needs those knees to be his best self. And I think San Antonio in 5 is probably the safest bet, just because I don't trust Edwards to stay healthy. DiVincenzo is obviously out, and now Dosunmu. We'll see what happens with this calf. Calves have been kind of the bane of the NBA's existence this season. So he's out again tonight, I believe. And so we'll see. I mean, I think San Antonio in 5 is the safest pick, because I just don't think Minnesota is going to have the health, and they should be commended for what they did to a really good Denver team that's going to deservingly go down in history as they're a first round loss and it's a disappointment and yada, yada. But that was a really good team, and we all knew that watching them. And Minnesota just had them figured out. So we'll see. Wemby's undefendable. Like, they can have Gobert, they can have McDaniels. It doesn't matter. Wemby's going to get what he wants. And for me, it's what could go wrong with San Antonio is everyone else. Wemby, I'm not worried about. Wemby is uniquely made for this moment. We'll just see how Harper, who had his explosion game against the Blazers, that was really impressive, but other than that was looked a little like he maybe wasn't at the stage of his career when he was going to be super helpful in a series like this, other than all he needed was that one game where he got him over the hump. But and then Castle, I thought was pretty hot and cold in that series. Now, sometimes he was great, and sometimes I thought watching is like, where's Stephon Castle, maybe all NBA third team level guy. So it's the guys other than Wemby that I have any worry about. And Fox played really well, but we'll see against just a better team that's going to be able to put more pressure on him, assuming Ant is anywhere near himself. But I agree. It's San Antonio in 5, despite me having a lot of respect for Minnesota and what they've done the last 3 years now. The injuries have just caught up, and it seems like where I think in the back of everyone's head it's felt like was going to happen in the West all season in the conference finals, kind of seems like where it's going. It's going to be OKC and San Antonio, and a current day maybe champion, the winners, the champion series, and certainly a long-term preview of what I think we're going to see a lot of Western Conference finals over the next half decade.
So with that, it is, of course, the Western Conference playoffs. We'll see what happens, and we'll break it down for you here on the Lakers Fast Break, and also my other channel, Lakers Latest. In the East, let's go to MSG. Again, New York is going to have their way with Game 1 as we're talking. They're up by 23 in the third. I think that game's over. But then again, you get the point where it is the team that just won over the weekend, facing off a team that's had a couple more days of rest and are playing at home in the New York Knicks. I'm interested to see Game 2. I think that this series will be decided upon by what happens in Game 2 and Game 3. Your thoughts, my friend? Because this Philadelphia team, they surprised a lot of people. This was the team that I thought I picked to the finals last year. I picked this team to the finals last year, and then all of a sudden, lo and behold, finally, a season and a half later, they finally start playing. Well, almost 2 seasons later, they're finally playing at the level I have expected them to be. I'm going to say they're going to give Game 2 a fight. I think that whatever adjustments will be made. And I think, again, fatigue is a factor in this situation. I don't think New York has every right answer for them. Seems like they do in Game 1. I want to see Game 2 and Game 3. I'm going to say this is going to go 7. And if New York is going to win it, I think they're going to have to pull it out in 7.
Yeah, I'll say New York in 6. I think the rest advantage you're on, like it knocked out Philly from this Game 1, essentially. Like they're in a high intensity Game 7 on the road 2 days ago, and now they're right back at it in MSG. So they were always going to lose Game 1, barring a miracle. And I think that even Game 2 is probably going to be a bit of a tough ask for them. But that's where, if they can look like they're right there with New York, and if they can knock them off, obviously, I think they have a chance. They're very talented, but I think this is all going to come down to 2 things. It's, can Embiid stay healthy, which we've already seen that was highly at risk. He seems to just attract bad luck. How many times did it look like someone was going to fall into his knee or something in that Game 7 against Boston, including when Tyrese Maxey kind of got pushed down in there, flopped down in there, whatever you think happened, and almost probably hurt his knee pretty bad, but fortunately he didn't. And another thing is, it's Paul George. Paul George was excellent in that round 1 series and played at a level that I frankly didn't necessarily think he had in him still. We hadn't really seen him play like that, I don't think, since maybe the first half of his last Clippers season. And so those are just 2 things that I'm not comfortable betting on with Philly. Like, Embiid just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and that sucks. And you were really happy for him to have that moment against Boston and finally stay healthy and be really impactful, because he's so good. And he's really going to be a career I think we look back on, be a little sad about it, because we did not get the full scope of what he could have been. But and then Paul George is just old, man, and this is not necessarily the best series for him in terms of New York can really throw wing defenders at him in a way Boston couldn't, in my opinion. And so I just think that New York's more talented. New York should be the favorite in the East, in my opinion, which I came off of and never should have. I should have just stuck with my preseason guns on that one, but I didn't. I came off it, and now I'm back to just where I think that New York is the better team in the series, and I think they're the best team in the East. And this Game 1 is not good evidence of that, but I think as this series progresses, we'll see that they kind of just rise above and are just a little bit better and a safer health bet than Philly.
Cleveland, Detroit is the last series. I just can't believe the way they just stack these games right on top of each other. It just seems very illogical. It's 2 games each day. Does it? And they're right now doing it right now. They're putting it on NBC on one and NBC CSN, the sports NBCSN, a much smaller network with a much smaller traffic that people can go to see. I can see it. I have no problem, but I'm just saying for the majority of people out there, it just, I don't know what the NBA do. I really don't understand. They're going to do it tomorrow too.
Yeah.
They're going to do it tomorrow too. I mean, why would you just wait an hour for God's sakes instead of 5:30, a 6:30 start time Pacific, and put the other start time at 4 p.m. This is not rocket science, Caleb.
No,
it just makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. I don't have anything to add. I completely agree with your sentiment. Like, I just don't, it doesn't make any sense. They seem like they want to hurt their own viewership. Like, I don't understand what the possible reason for this could be. Like, push back whatever NCIS you have running on NBC after this and just have the game. I mean, I get they're both in, I believe, the Central or Eastern time zones, but I mean, still, like, figure it out. It's fine. Seriously, like this. So no, it sucks. It's too bad that they kind of are trying to make these series a little harder to watch both of, but I guess this is just what they're going to do. And we can't really do anything other than just trudge through it because we unfortunately don't have control of it.
Because right now the Minnesota game has started. And that just anyways. All right. But the last series on the plate is Detroit, Cleveland. It's just stressful if I didn't even think about it. Detroit, Cleveland. Detroit was given a gift, and the gift was Orlando on offense. And we talked about before seeing the worst offense from Houston that you've seen in some time. Well, that wasn't until Orlando in Game 6 at home. Second half, I think they decided to put out some high schoolers instead because, I think, maybe some high schoolers would have shot better than they did in that second half. Did they miss like 24 straight shots, I think, at one time or something?
There was some ridiculous offensive stats that were going on.
It was truly bad. And again, it led to the demise. It's what we had already anticipated. Jamal Mosley who was fired earlier today as we talk about this. So I can just say now, Detroit breathing a sigh of relief. They move on to face Cleveland, who we thought at one time could look like the class of the East, or could like they've been beasted by somebody, and they were beasted by Toronto for much of that 7-game series. It was a home team, a home court series. No question about it. I had said that it already had those vibes. It had that feel like whoever's going to win the home team, home series, whoever's home was going to win that series. Do you see that same pattern following here as far as it's concerned? Detroit in 7, simply because of the fact that they have the 4 home games and Cleveland has just not proven they can win on the road as of yet?
I just don't necessarily think this is a great matchup for Cleveland's bigs, who are better in my opinion, for my money, but they just have had a bit of a problem where they just necessarily don't seem to be all that tough and they're a little soft. And if there's one thing we can say about the Detroit Pistons front line, it is that they are not soft. Now, they have their other issues. Jalen Duren was just abysmal in that whole series until Game 7, when I didn't think he was good, but he was fine. And Stewart, I think, maybe played 4 or 7 minutes or something like that in Game 7. Like, they have their own, can of worm issues with their bigs, but I just think that they're going to be able to be physical enough to throw Cleveland off the scent of what they like to do a little bit. And I think I'll take Detroit in 7. And it's really close to me because I think Cleveland, frankly, is as better. I mean, they clearly have better offensive players, right? With Mitchell and Harden. And then we even saw some of those little bursts of what Mobley can be when he's on last series, when he really won them Game 5 with his 3-point shooting. And so I'll lean slightly Detroit because I just trust their physicality, but I don't feel really good about either one of these teams. And as I kind of already spoiled, I think the Knicks are just better than both these teams in a playoff setting, which is why I felt so good about them all year, despite, and I think we can go back, if your listeners can go back if they want and care for some reason and find, like I said at one point, like I was not unique in having concerns with Detroit in the postseason, and I thought those kind of came to fruition in the first round. And Cleveland's Cleveland, and Boston, while they kind of fooled us and looked like they were going to be great, that team just didn't have very many good players in the end of the day. Like it was Tatum and Brown and White who struggled. And then you're really putting a lot in the hands of Neemias Queta, who's a great story and I think is clearly like a starting level NBA big, but couldn't stay out of foul trouble. And he's just not Joel Embiid, and he's not either of these Cleveland guys, and he's not Karl Towns. He's not any of these players. And that's kind of who you're relying upon in an era when I think bigs are starting to become more important again. And so I think that New York just has the most playoff experience. They've shown to be able to play well in big moments. They have an A-plus closer with Brunson. They have all these wing defenders to throw at people, which is a pretty invaluable asset in the NBA, is just having these big 6'6" to 6'9" defenders to throw at people. And so I think that while I'm going to lean slightly Detroit to win this series, I think New York should be a minus money favorite, not clear, but a notch above the field to win the Eastern Conference, in my opinion.
Thing is, though, New York, when you put so much faith into them,
no, I know, yeah,
they always
kind of how you feel with all these teams, though. Like it's just,
yeah.
I mean, Cleveland's an even worse example of that than New York. And
it's a true toss-up in the East. Any one of these four teams, I think, could find their way into the finals.
Yeah,
to lose in the finals, but find their way.
Yeah. If Philly can stay healthy, they have a shot, right? But I don't trust them to stay healthy, and they're coming off a really hard series against the team who, frankly, that went 6 with Atlanta, but like none of us were watching that series thinking that it was tight. Like it was. They blew out Atlanta in their 4 wins, and they lost both games by 1, which obviously was highlighted by their 4 bajillion point game 6 win, where it was uncompetitive basketball in the favor of the Knicks. So it's just the rest advantage for a team with injury concerns is tough for Philly. This is just a scheduling thing more than I think New York's clearly way better than them to me, where I think New York's going to have the leg up early in the series. And then as it goes on and both teams wear down, it'll even out, but it might be too much for Philly to overcome at that point. And talk about like someone you put your faith in and then they come back and bite you. Like Cleveland is the best example of that. Like you look at, them in New York have the most talent of any of these teams left. Like it's not a question these are 2 teams with 2 to 4 players who can be considered all-star level guys in any season. But Cleveland just has never been able to do it. I'm not giving them any props for outdueling a Toronto team that was missing their best offensive guard and ended up missing Brandon Ingram for about half the series. And so I just don't love any of these teams that are left in the East. It is a toss-up, but I just think the experience of the Knicks and the experience mixed with the talent, mixed with the fact that they've shown us what they can do in these big spots, specifically in that series against Boston last year. That's who I feel relatively comfortable saying I think is going to come out of the East just because of the options left.
Well, we'll see. I can't say I disagree with you on New York, but again, I think it's still a free-for-all. Any one of these teams could find their way to it, but New York does look like the team that has a lot of what comes together. But then again, this was the team that this time last week, a lot of people were questioning because, it's just where was Cat? They ignored him as far as Bridges. They, looked terrible. It totally changed within a matter of a week, but again, they're facing other teams that have extreme faults as well. So we'll see what happens. I guess I'm going to give it to Knicks at this point, just because the fact I agree with you that they have less faults seemingly than everyone else right now. But again, nothing would surprise me as far as who comes out of the East out of any of these 4 teams. But before we head on out, I wanted to go ahead and mention, yes, we did both of us pick OKC. If you have thoughts down below, please plead to me why the Lakers should go ahead and win the series, because I cannot find the rationale right now in doing so outside of an SGA injury. Let us know right down in the comments below. But before we end and out, some interesting things happened earlier today in the world of basketball. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Jamal Mosley fired. Not much of a surprise. That second half in Game 6 sealed his doom.
Yeah.
I know he was already the seat was roasting. Do you think he's deserving of another look at as far as a head coaching gig in the NBA?
Not right away. I mean, I don't think that he was a horrible coach by any means. Like, I don't think this should forbade him from ever being in a head coaching position again. But I think he would stand to benefit from being a high level assistant somewhere, and maybe coming back in 2 or 3 years and being a considered again. In almost like a Mike Brownie way, where it's like he should be mentioned, but you're never going to feel great about it when you hire him. But I don't think he's a bad coach either. So, it was to be expected. The offense there was just a mess for his whole tenure, and the defense was really good. So whatever values you want to put on that, but no, I mean, I don't think that this is a guy, like, I don't think Chicago should be rushing to the phone to hire Jamal Mosley as their next coach. I think that he can go and be a high-level assistant somewhere with a lot of head coaching, about 5 years of head coaching experience, which in Orlando is nothing to sneeze at with how they've been in their last 20 years. But it was time for him to go, and I think Orlando is going to be an attractive job. We'll see who they bring in. There's been a little bit of Tibbs mention, which I just think, how many times do we need to see this song and dance? Like, I think he's a good floor-raising coach, but I think their floor is pretty high unless it's no buy-in, which is what they had this season. And then when they had any, they took the 1 seed to 7 games. So I think that Billy Donovan's also been mentioned here. I think that he makes a ton of sense to go back to Florida, where he's had his most success. He seems to be adaptable and get not the most, in my opinion. I think he's a tad overrated after living with him for quite a while there in OKC, but he's a good coach and he's better than Mosley. And I think that he does a good job. He's another floor raiser coach, but I think that he is a little more willing to adapt than Tibbs. And I think he could do a solid job there. And I think this Orlando team's talented, so it should be a desirable job. And, thoughts out to Jamal Mosley or whatever, but it was time for a change there. And I think everybody kind of unanimously agrees. And when that happens, it's, I think, a pretty cut and dry case.
And in the executive world, 2 interesting decisions. You mentioned Chicago. I did want to go ahead and mention Chicago. Chicago hired someone and actually did something I liked. They're taking a chance. As Atlanta Hawks senior vice president Bryson Graham, he has been named the new executive VP of basketball operations for the Chicago Bulls. He spent a ton of time in New Orleans and moved over to Hawks, but he is now looking like he's going to be running the the Chicago Bulls as far as their basketball operations. Your thoughts on this move? Again, it's not one of the same old names who we'll be talking about here after him.
Yeah, I mean, it's a chance. He's a young guy. He's 39. Atlanta is pretty well run, I think. They seem to be, with this new front office he's been, I'm sure, a crucial part of. Coming from New Orleans is always a bit of a weird gamble, but I want to say Trajan Langdon maybe came from New Orleans, and we've seen what he's done there in Detroit since he took over for Troy Weaver. So I don't know. It's hard. I always find it really difficult to judge executives on like when you don't know for sure who they are, right? And it's the Bulls. Like, the Bulls are going to have to kind of prove that they're not incompetent before I can assume that they're competent, even if I did like the hire and was comfortable with the guy and knew who he was. And so I just think predicting executives is tough. And I like that they kind of went a little outside the box. Like, everyone had linked them to the Boston guy, Matt Lloyd. And then they didn't go that way. And so I think that hiring a young guy who they clearly think has some organizational upside there, I think it's a good, it has the chance to be a good move. It could be a stupid move. Like, we just don't know. ownership has been, I think, really involved and questionable in Chicago. I don't think they necessarily are tripping over their feet to pay the tax there. And in their defense, they haven't had a reason to want to pay the tax in a while. But we'll see. We'll see how they fare in the lottery. That's going to be really important for them. If they jump, all of a sudden, this looks like a crazy, awesome opportunity, and they have cap space and a potential high pick. So it's hard to judge executives, in my opinion, until they have at least like 2 to 3 years of sample, unless they do something horribly bad, like the former Bulls GM who got in and immediately traded 2 first-round picks for an aging Nikola Vucevic. I just thought that was right off the bat a pretty concerning move. So hopefully no deja vu for the Bulls fans. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. He deserves a chance. He's coming from a place that seems to be well run under this front office, and so yeah, I mean, I'm glad that it wasn't one of these rehash guys who've already had their opportunity. I think that's better than what Dallas did, in my opinion.
Which we'll go to right now. And Dallas, they introduced their new head of basketball operations. And no, it's not Jason Kidd. No, it's not one of the co-GMs that was in place already. They went to Masai Ujiri as president. And I was having discussion with one of my followers earlier today, and because he thought it was a good hire, and I had to point out I don't think so, because the way, like Rob will get a lot of credit for helping build a championship team for 1 year, and so will Masai Ujiri. But what did you do after it? And remember that we live in a "what have you done for me lately" society, and what he did before he left. No, he wasn't responsible for the Jakob Poeltl terrible contract beyond all description that is in place, because he left just before that he was signed to that deal. But the Emmanuel Quickly deal, that's on him. Trading for Brandon Ingram, that's on him. And that terrible contract. RJ Barrett, is he getting you close to $30 million a year? I'll let you interpret that the way you want to. Yes, he has a nice bounce on his rim shot type deal, but I wouldn't say that's $27 million worth, but okay. He's a nice player, but $27 million for a nice player is not what I would want to pay. But that, again, I'll leave that up to your interpretation. He does have the Scotty Barnes. He does have Colin Murray Boyles, as far as he was there for that. I think, was he? He was there.
Even if he was, like,
he left right around the time that they were drafting.
I think it was right after the draft, because I remember it being really weird. But even if he was, like, I'm assuming they didn't just walk into his office one day and say, "We're firing you." Like, I'm sure that there was a lot of other people involved in that pick, would be my guess, just based off of common sense, but who knows?
But the Toronto Raptors, for most of Masai's career, has, outside of not having Kawhi, has been a little bit up and down as far as is concerned, especially in recent years. Your thoughts on the Masai Ujiri hiring? You sound like already that you don't like it. I, again, think they could have done better. And I think if Rob Pelinka, if and when he should get fired, it's not if, but when, happens, I think he'll probably get a look at another gig, and I'll question it the same way I questioned Masai Ujiri today.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like all his bones are made on that Kawhi Leonard trade, which wins you a championship. Like, that's the goal. Good job, man. But he didn't sign the Poeltl extension, but he traded for Poeltl and traded a first-round pick for Poeltl, who we saw like is not really playable against high-level bigs. There is the Quickly extension. They're selling really low on Pascal Siakam, waiting way too long to trade him. They got a decent return for OG Anunoby, but in my opinion, not enough.
Did FVV walk?
They let Fred VanVleet walk out the door and didn't trade him. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that I don't think is great. And drafting Scotty Barnes is awesome. That was a controversial pick at the time, because it was just like everyone thought it was going to be Jalen Suggs, and they swerved and went Scotty Barnes. He deserves credit for that. And then the Kawhi trade's great. And if he really was the one who made the call on Colin Murray Boyles, then great. That was a little early for him, perceived to be, in that draft process, and they just pulled the trigger and said, "We like the guy," and he looks like he was a really solid choice for them. So he has his good moments. I don't think he's a bad general manager by any means. Like, I don't think he's going to come in and mess anything up, but they clearly wanted to splash. That was kind of reported months ago that they were sniffing around all these guys like Tim Connolly and Presti and guys like, well, why would they leave their team to go to this? But it's a new owner making his first hire. And they clearly wanted to splash, and he was the most splashy name on the free agent market. So not shocking. Like, he wasn't mentioned, but it's not shocking to me just looking at kind of what was reported that they were after. But I just think there's like drafting Siakam's great. Drafting Barnes is great. Trading for Kawhi is great. And then I'll give him half credit for Murray Boyles. But there's as many, if not more, questionable decisions to go along with the great ones. And maybe that's all you really want to be looking for in a GM, is someone who hits as much as they miss. But for a Dallas team that was gifted Cooper Flagg after making a franchise ruining decision to trade Luka Doncic for a injury prone 31-year-old center, I just think that this would be a more attractive job than that, especially with new ownership that seems like they're likely going to be willing to spend, and a really passionate fan base and interesting young pieces, with Flagg being at the top of that list, but they also have a Lively and guys like that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. Again, I think that judging executives is always hard to do fairly because you never know what ownership did or didn't get involved with. But I wasn't like blown away. Like, you see some of the response to this, like, what a hire. And I'm like, well, what are we basing that off of? He essentially was an unsuccessful GM. And then because they wanted to spurn the LA teams, the Raptors traded Kawhi to Toronto for less than they could have gotten. And they won a title, which, again, great. Like, he drafted Siakam, which is great. And he was a big part of that, and found Fred VanVleet. But then you let VanVleet walk. You really lost all those members of a championship team who were all in their prime ages for essentially RJ Barrett and Quickly and whatever picks they're going to receive from Indiana. Like, they just did not capitalize on what they had when they decided to go in that wave of rebuild. So there's some good, there's some bad. I think he's a solid GM, but this should not be like some widely celebrated move to me.
I just want to make sure and clear to everyone out there that's watching us on the Lakers Fast Break or listening to us that he was not talking for the last 7 to 10 minutes about Rob Pelinka. He was talking about Masai Ujiri, but you could put a blanket over those two and say the same exact thing. What you described there. You could take that blurb of what you said and put it on Masai Ujiri's Wikipedia page and put it on Rob Pelinka's Wikipedia page as well, because again, it's ups and downs. And the problem is, why is Presti, why is Brad Stevens, although the team didn't actually do well, but still they've got
he is what he is. He's really good at his job.
Yeah, he's really good at his job. It's because they're more consistent. They're able to provide players that can contribute and contribute well. And OKC, San Antonio. Why is the San Antonio GM so good? Because he's been able to put together players that can contribute and contribute well more times than not. They have less bodies that need to be buried as far as it's concerned, or less skeletons in their closets as far as bad draft choices or bad picks or bad free agents that they picked up, than the Rob Pelinkas and Masai Ujiris of the world, who are high, low. They remind me of the guy, somebody here in Vegas. I mean, happens every weekend. The guy that comes in and just puts 500 right down, doubles down on blackjack. He'll get it, he'll hit it, and he is off to the races. And next thing you know, he's blown the entire $2,000 by the end of the night, because again, it's consistency is what you're after, not a gambler, not a guy who's always gambling on every single thing he does. You can take a shot here or there, and Sam Presti has, to be quite honest with you. Yes, absolutely. But talent evaluation is an art. To me, it's an art, because, these scouts, these individuals, I spent a lot of time with Rafael Barlow, who is now working with the Dallas Mavericks overseas. And I spent time on how he views and studies these individuals and all the work that you have to put into it. It's not an easy gig. And especially if you're doing it at the level, the executive level that they are as at GMs and executive VPs and whatnot, you have to know your stuff. You have to know not only your talent on your team and what it can do and not do, but also what everyone else in the league, what you believe that they can do and not do on your team as well, if you have the chance to go ahead and obtain them for some reason or another. So again, it's about talent evaluation. And when you have a lot of hits and misses, it's there. It's there. I mean, and Masai Ujiri and Rob Pelinka, I think, are very much one and the same.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put Masai a little bit above him just because
I'm sorry.
I don't think Ujiri does not have anything near the crime of the whatever the Westbrook trade was. Now, was that Pelinka, LeBron, whoever you want to put it on? Fine.
I don't know. What you don't say the Emmanuel Quickly deal is something similar to that?
No, because I think that Quickly and Barrett, while they have their issues, like they're still good players who I think are starting level guys. Now they're not stars, and you traded a really good OG Anunoby for them, obviously, and you'd want more. But I think both those guys are good players, as compared to the Lakers. Like got a fun half year of D'Angelo Russell as their return, essentially for Kuzma and all those picks, and a terrible year Westbrook. So, and then I mean, also like Ujiri did have the Scotty Barnes pick, which Masai doesn't quite have. And obviously he also found Reeves, but I think it's out there that Reeves was a weird thing where I think Detroit wanted to draft Reeves and he just said, just don't draft me. I just want to go to the Lakers. So, I mean, not to discredit, I mean, that doesn't matter. Like he still had to find him and want to sign him, obviously. But I think Masai's a little bit better than him, but no, I mean, I don't think either one. I mean, I've been more pro Pelinka than you have. Like, I just think being a GM is probably really hard, and there's probably a lot of factors we never know about. And I think one of the reasons that Presti's so good is because Oklahoma City management ownership never gets involved with anything. Like they kind of just sit back and say, "Do your thing." And
and that will change very shortly for Rob Pelinka. I'll just say that.
And so it's hard to tell what is and isn't. Like, I was going to use a stupid example. Never mind. But
I think Jeannie Buss had let him have his way for the past.
Yeah, I think
some odd years.
And so but then you got like Team Clutch in there, and I mean that like we all know that's who wanted the Westbrook trade, and they said trade for Westbrook, and they did it because LeBron wanted to, and then LeBron tried to deflect blame.
No. I mean,
you can, but you don't, right? Like who at that point of his career ever said no to LeBron, other than the Heat, and the Heat have been really well.
Pat Riley would say no. Pat Riley has said no.
Yeah, he did.
So Presti would say no. There are some GMs, Calif, that know. Okay, you present this to me as far as Westbrook, and I would have said no. And I know they would. There's some GMs that just have enough in the tank or cojones, whatever you want to say, intestinal fortitude, whatever you want to say, and wrap it up as just say no. It's just oh, you're going to make someone upset. Oh well, I want to win. I don't want to put the best team out there. And if you can't accept that, oh, well, you move on. It's just that simple. Yeah.
I mean, obviously looking back, like that would have been the smart thing for him to do. So we'll see with Masai. You never hear anything about Toronto's ownership being involved in stuff. And this Dallas ownership group has been very kind of they've just been loud. Now, whether that's because they approved a Luka trade or because they wanted a Luka trade or whatever, we're never really going to know what went down with that, I don't think. But still, like, so we'll see what happens with Masai there. I mean, I think that it's a case of like who better were they going to get. So I don't think it's a bad hire. I don't want to go there. I just think that when you're in a position of having a Cooper flag, I just think that everything should be a little easier and you can afford to take some risks. And Masai Ujiri isn't a risk because he's not going to come in there and he's not going to be a Presti or a Brad Stevens or any of the guys, we can point to like who are the best in this game are every year. He's not going to be that guy, but he can come in. I doubt he's going to like run your franchise into the ground. We've seen like a lot of these guys contributing to this Toronto nearly upset first round team were picked by him or added by him or whatever. And so it's just going to be about, can he manage his assets a little bit better in the second go around, I'm sure, or third go around, because he was in Denver before Toronto. But so I don't think it's bad. I just don't think there was just some circles that were like really hyped up about it. And I just don't think that this is a guy who deserves this acclaim, because I just don't think he's earned it based off what he's done in his career, other than he's a championship GM and he won that championship on the back of a really ballsy trade. And I'll give that to him. But how do we look at Masai Ujiri if even Klay Thompson doesn't tear his ACL? Maybe it's completely differently. So I think really basing a whole guy's resume off of one move is always risky, and that's to me what a lot of Masai Ujiri's public love affair is. Well, he won a championship in Toronto, and other than that, I just don't think he's ever done anything particularly spectacular.
And again, we'll have to wait and see, as far as how this plays itself out with Masai Ujiri. He's got a team that he's got to make some decisions on. Kyrie Irving, what do you do with him? Do you try to see if you can win with this team? I don't think it's now a team that Cooper Flagg is best suited for. I think you need to go ahead and start looking for pieces around Cooper Flagg that will fit better. Kyrie Irving is 35 and coming off a major injury. Do you want to just try and see if he can be moved somewhere where you could get something back to help build your team going forward? Do you take a couple steps back so that you can move forward? I think they have to make a lot of decisions there because, again, this team was built, at least the core parts and core pieces of it, was built with another player in mind in Luka Doncic. And now you're throwing Cooper Flagg, who has slight differences in how he approaches and plays the game than what Luka does. So we'll see what happens. But again, I agree. The jury's out on Masai and Ujiri, and if he's going to go ahead and be able to be a GM more consistent with his choices and talent evaluations going forward, and that's what you ask out of a fan base.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Dallas that I'd keep Kyrie around, and then you have Lively and Flagg, and I think that's a solid. I think they could be okay next year. But I mean, other than that, they got a lot of work to do there. That's not, like you said, that's not a team built around Flagg's strengths. It's a team built around Luka Doncic's strengths. So they're gonna have to reassess, and it'll be interesting to see what they do because they're in prime position. They're right in that healthy lottery jump range. We'll see if they get lucky again.
The league will just go crazy if that happens, but
yeah, so we'll see if that happens, and if so, then and you get a Peterson or whoever, and you have Peterson and Flagg and Lively, I think you're off to a great start already. And either way, they're going to be able to, I think, get a point guard of the future, which, all due respect to Ryan Nembhard, who is a good find for them, he's not a point guard of the future for a team that has a guy who's probably going to be a top 7, top 10-ish at a minimum guy in Cooper Flagg. So it's a desirable job. It's, I think, a desirable place to be, being in a market like Dallas with no state income tax, all the stuff we hear all the time, with an awesome young running mate like Flagg. So I don't know. We'll see. But he's got some stuff to do, and I'm sure he won't take too long to make his first ripple there in Dallas.
So, my friend, it's been great having you aboard. What you got cooking at either New Century Press or the Suave Report, and any final thoughts before we head on out?
Yeah, so a week from now is the lottery, and I will have a Thunder piece that comes out about kind of the guys who fit their their style of play. Right after that, where no matter where they land, in that sure to be not rigged or messed with pomp and circumstance that is the NBA draft lottery. And that's kind of the next thing I have there. And then after that, we're just kind of sitting back and waiting and seeing how the cards fall before I make any calls on anything else I'm going to write. But keep an eye out for that. That'll be out lottery night for sure.
It is, of course, Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check him out today at the New Century Press and his work on the Suave Report as well. Well, Calif, great job as always, my friend. You bring the insight and observations that we always have come to expect. Looking forward to an interesting playoff, and we might have to, if the prospects change, just on the slightest chance, might have to come on a little sooner to discuss, or might have to bring you on the post game to discuss. Just in case there's a little if there.
Yeah, well, we'll I guess hope for some craziness then and see what happens. But I don't know that you'll need my presence anytime soon.
8% on Kalshi. I'll just leave it at that. But again, Lakers, if they split and get game 3, then you could start to believe.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. We'll see what happens. But this is Calif Poncy. Please go ahead and check them out today on the New Century Press and the Swab Report, indeed. So thank you so much again for watching, listening, everyone. Please give us that like, that subscribe, and that 5-star review. Looking forward to providing more NBA observations this week. I'm hoping to get Legend on. I'm hoping to get Matt John on later this week. Looking forward for them. And also, Calif Poncy wants to come back on sooner or on our usual spot and time right here for some great NBA observations.